Now we can get started. Okay, so today we're going to go over solving absolute value equations and inequalities. Alright, so right now we're going to go over kind of the main idea behind an absolute value. Okay, so we all know that, let's say, absolute value of negative 12, it's just going to be 12. And let's say the absolute value of positive 18 is just going to be positive 18. So no matter what's in here, the absolute value is going to come out positive. Okay, so the general idea of it, the absolute value, basically measures the distance from the origin, or in this case, 0. Okay, so if you have let me see, 0, let's say 1, 2, 3, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. If you're starting at 0 and you want to know the absolute value of positive 3, you know it's a distance of 3 from 0. Make those a little bit bigger. So if you want to know the absolute value of negative 3, same thing, it's a distance of 3 from 0. Okay, so that's kind of the general idea of the absolute value. Alright, so with that kind of in mind, think of this. Okay, so let's say if you had absolute value of, let's say, negative 5. Okay, so we know that's going to equal 5. And what if we have the absolute value of positive 5, which, again, we know that's going to equal 5. Okay, so what that's saying here is, whatever value in here, it can be either positive or negative, and you'll get the same answer. Okay, so that kind of leans us toward a general explanation or a general solution. Okay, so the number slash value inside the absolute value bars will always have a positive outcome. Okay, so what if instead of negative 5, we just call that x? Okay, and we know our answer either way, whether x is negative or x, straighten that up a little bit, x is positive. Either way, we're going to get some value that we'll call k. Okay, so if you had a negative x here, you still got 5. If you had a positive x here, you still got 5. So either way, it's going to give you the same thing. So if we wrote that as kind of a general explanation, okay, it would say the absolute value of x equals k. So kind of think of the negative and positive 5, it equals 5. Bless you. Means that x can equal k, so that means 5 can equal 5, or x can equal negative k. Which means it can equal negative inside of there, and it would still be the same thing. Okay, so this is what we're going to use to solve absolute value equalities, well, equations. Right, so that's kind of our general idea. Yep, bless you. All right, so using that, I guess you could say, not really formula, but that basic idea, we're going to solve the next example. Oh, anyone still? Oh, I'll wait a couple of seconds. All right. Okay, so let's say, for example, we wanted to solve absolute value of 2/3 x plus 3 plus 4 equals 0. Oops, there we go. Okay. Now the first thing you have to do before you can even start to try and solve this one is you have to isolate your absolute value, which means you have to get rid of that plus 4. Okay, so first thing you do is always isolate your absolute value term. Before you try to solve it. Okay? All right, so that means our absolute value of 2/3 x plus 3 plus 4 equals 0, we're just going to subtract 4 from both sides. Okay, 4 minus 4 is 0, so that's just going to disappear. Okay, so that gives us the absolute value of 2/3 x plus 3 equals negative 4. Sorry, actually this was supposed to be 10. I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense. All right, sorry about that. Kind of overlooked the 1 there. So this should be 6. All right, so now that we have it isolated, we just have to remember absolute value of x equals k when x is equal to k or x is equal to negative k. So we apply that to this. So the absolute value of that, so absolute value, actually it's not when, it's means. Probably more accurate. There we go. So absolute value of 2/3 x plus 3 simply means that whatever's in here, your 2/3 x plus 3, can equal 6, or what's in here, 2/3 x plus 3, can equal negative 6. Either one of those would make it true, or should make it true. All right. Then once you do that, you just simply solve both of these. Okay, so we'll solve this one first. Okay, so you have 2/3 x plus 3 equals 6. Subtract 3 from both sides. Okay, so you have 2/3 x equals 3. And you can either multiply both sides by the reciprocal, or you can multiply by 3 first and then divide by 2. Either way, it's up to you. All right, so we'll multiply both sides by 3. Okay, so those two cancel out. So you have 2x equals 9. Divide both sides by 2, you end up with x equals 9 over 2. All right, so now we'll solve the second one. 2/3 x plus 3 equals negative 6. Okay, so if we subtract 3 from both sides, we end up with 2/3 2/3 x, sorry about that, equals negative 9. Okay, so now we multiply both sides by 3. Those two cancel out. You have 2x equals negative 27. Divide both sides by 2. X equals negative 27 over 2. All right. The thing is, you always want to double check your answers. So you just double check them by plugging them back in. All right, so I'll start to check on a separate sheet. Oh, I'll just pull that down a little. Oh. And all right, I'll leave that there. Okay, so now we just check it. Okay, so if we checked it with our original, you have 2/3 x plus 3 equals 6. So if we check x equals 9 over 2, that would give us 2/3 times 9 over 2 plus 3 equals 6. Okay, so those 2's would cancel out. Which gives you the absolute value of 9 over 3 plus 3 equals 6. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So the absolute value of 3 plus 3 equals 6, or the absolute value of 6 is 6, which is true. Oh, move that up some. Okay, so now we check, slide that up. Oh, sorry, in case you're anyone still writing on this first one? All right, let me move that out the way. Okay, so now we check x equals negative 27 over 2. And again, we just plug it into our original. So that means you have the absolute value of 2/3 times negative 27 over 2 plus 3 equals 6. Okay. Once again, the 2's cancel each other out. So you're left with the absolute value of negative 27 over 3 plus 3 equals 6. Okay. Now this, actually negative 27 over 3 is just negative 9. Okay, so you have the absolute value of negative 9 plus 3 equals 6. Negative 9 plus 3 is negative 6. So that gives you the absolute value of negative 6 equals 6, which once again is true. All right, any questions on that one? All right. Okay, oh, I'm still writing. All right. Okay, so let's say, for example, if you wanted to solve 3 times 1/2 x minus 5 minus 4 equals -4. Oh, bring that down some. Okay, so just like before you can do anything, you have to isolate your absolute value term, which means even at 3, it has to go. So you just want that absolute value by itself. Your absolute value. All right. So that means if we started off with 3 times 1/2 x minus 5 minus 4 equals -4, we just have to add 4 to both sides. Okay, where that just cancels out, so that's 0. And that leaves us with 3 times absolute value of 1/2 x minus 5 equals 0, because that also cancels out. Okay, so we divide both sides by 3. Zero divided by 3 is 0. Anything divided by itself is just 1. So you have 1/2 x minus 5 equals 0. Okay, so when it equals 0, it's actually a little bit easier. It's the same idea, but you have to do a little less work. Okay, so once again, you want to remember the absolute value of x equals k means x can equal k, or x can equal -k. Okay, so we do the same thing here. Absolute value of 1/2 x minus 5 equals 0 means 1/2 x minus 5 can equal 0, or 1/2 x minus 5 can equal -0, which is still just 0. That's why here you have to do a little less work, because you honestly don't even have to solve for that one. Same answer. Okay, so you just have to solve one of them. Okay, so you have 1/2 x. Bring that up a little bit. Minus 5 equals 0. Go ahead and add 5 to both sides. It cancels out. So we have our 1/2 x equals 5. Multiply both sides by 2. We have x equals 10. Okay, and we might as well go ahead and check it. Okay, so if we plug that in to our absolute value, you can plug it into either one. If you want to plug it into the one at the very beginning, you could. If you want to plug it into this one, it would be the same answer. So you can pick either one. Okay, so you have absolute value 1/2 x minus 5 equals 0. That gives you 1/2 times 10 minus 5 equals 0. Okay, 10 divided by 5, might as well go ahead and rewrite it. Nope, 10 divided by 2 is 5. Sorry about that. Minus 5 is 0, which gives you 5 minus 5, which is 0. So we know that this is true. All right, so any questions on this one? All right. is done. Oops. Let me give an example I have for that one. Yeah, all right. Okay, so let's say if we wanted to solve for the absolute value of x plus 4 equals 20. Okay, and I'll give you a second to start on this one. Alright, so for this one, our absolute value is already by itself, so we don't have to do anything extra. Okay, so we just want to remember that when you see that equal sign in the absolute value of x equals k, means that x can equal k or x can equal negative k. So just applying that, absolute value of x plus 4 equals 20 means x plus 4 can equal 20, or x plus 4 can equal negative 20. Okay, we just go ahead and solve for both. X plus 4 equals 20. Subtract 4 from both sides. You have x equals 16. X plus 4 equals negative 20. Subtract 4 from both sides. X equals negative 24. Okay, so if we go ahead and plug them in to check, absolute value of x plus 4 equals 20. When x equals 16, that's just the absolute value of 16 plus 4 equals 20. So we have an absolute value of 20 equals 20, which is true. Okay, now if we want to check x equals negative 24, the absolute value of negative 24 plus 4, make that a little taller, equals 20. Negative 24 plus 4 is negative 20. So the absolute value of negative 20 is 20, which, again, is true. All right, so any questions on that one? All right. Excuse me. So if anyone's due. done. And it's about a 25